We're just told that the TSO will never be the same again. And after your presentation, Tavi, I got the feeling that the TSO role you're describing is as much as a market facilitator as a system operator. Can you elaborate how will the future be for us in your vision? We see the world around us changing, the digitalization changing everyone around us, giving us new tools, giving us new demands. Will our role be to provide for market development for others as much as being a system operator?
Thank you very much for your question, really, and happy to be in this panel as well. If you talk about the future role of transmission system operators, then I say that I think currently system operators really consist two different business models, such regular asset management and system operations. And I think we all remember the debates in time of third energy package, that which kind of model we have chosen. Full ownership unbundling and or ICO, independent system operator model, etc. And that time, myself as well, I very much argued pro full ownership unbundling and really strong transmission system operators together with assets. But currently, I see that that those things somehow going different paths, really. That together with the digitalization, I see that this part, which consists the system operation, this is more like a platform type of business. Really, the future transmission system operator, more platform provider for other energy market participants, and this is not consist one transmission system operator in one country, or where we have many system operators, transmission system operators in one country. Not only these, but cross-border, and also together with distribution system operators. That currently some kind of new business model really start to exist, that this system operation parts from distribution and from transmission system operators and cross-border all coming together and create some kind of new platform based on all those digitalization tools what we have already on our hands. And I definitely believe that even in the future more tools available. That future TSO, at least the system operation part, is a more platform type of business than current independent business.
Yeah. Laurent, what is your thoughts of this?
So, first of all, I would like to say that TSO, we are very happy to be here, the sponsor of that event. I think I recall a discussion with Olivier and Tavi 9 months ago, where we were exchanging on what miss in our industry, and we thought having a good event, thinking on innovation around data, is missing, and I sincerely hope this event will be interesting for that, and there will be a continuation after. So we are NSOE, so the Association of Transmission System Operator. We definitely are looking very closely on what's happening into the new interaction between TSOs and DSOs, and we do have a very active platform together with DSOs on that topic. And today, I think this example is particularly interesting, because I think that shows a new step of what can be achieved into this grid operator becoming a digital platform player. And what I find here very interesting is how this approach can really smoothly link retail and wholesale together in a single set of data for the benefit of the prosumer. About doing sector coupling. So basically not looking purely on electrical data. And I think that can illustrate new roles which TSO can play, obviously together with DSOs, because a lot of these use cases and optimization does require joint coordination of TSOs and DSOs. So I think today's example is really a good benchmark of what our members could become in the future.
Right. Olivier, coming from a country with a long history of centralized solutions in many respects, Benoit Esnault mentioned the different testing grounds on new models, centralized, decentralized models across Europe. And following up on Laurent's comments on TSO, DSO coordination, where do we go?
I think that we all are convinced about the challenges that we are facing at the moment, and to be more illustrating, just I would like to highlight a few details about those type of challenges. First of all is to speak about the physics, because at the very end, if we want to keep a high quality of supply, we have not only to take care about digital solution, but how we organize the link between the digital solution and the existing assets, because at the very end, electro-technical laws are always relevant. And it's a big issue, in fact, for all the TSO and especially for us, to adapt the existing assets, because those assets, and they are long life assets. Transmission line, the oldest transmission line that we have in France are more or less 100 years old. And so we will have to achieve a transition, considering also the existing asset. And in that way, digital solution can help to make those assets more flexible. And the first condition is to increase the volume and the range of the data that we collect and that we do have to have a better observation of what are those assets, the statute, and the way they are used. The second aspect is to develop new innovative model. Risk analysis, in fact, to make better real-time decision, because there are high potential for a better use of those transmission assets, but I assume that it is more or less the same with all type of assets, and especially on distribution side, considering the fact that with better data, and for example, we are developing a lot of new innovation regarding the real-time monitoring, and for example, also meteo station, in order to be able to consider even some new data to improve the models. And to answer to your question about how to mix centralized approach and decentralized approach, we launched this year a very ambitious program of transformation of our grid to make the first bimodal digital and power grid. And to give an illustration, for example, we have 2,500 substations that are at the moment more or less some electrical nodes, and in the future it will also be digital nodes. I mean by this that it will be digital hub, local digital hub, able to collect the data and to improve some innovative decision process at the local level. The second condition also for the data is to change the organization of the data management. And the example of Ellering with the EastFeed platform is a very good and very inspiring solution. We have at the moment a very hierarchical organization with very clear role of what is the role for the TSO, what is the role for the DSO, and some defined border between the two worlds. And we need to change this organization toward a very horizontal organization to share the data and to be able to reveal the value of those data. And the last issues is to develop new model of markets to be able to develop flexibility resources, because I do believe that in the future, those flexibility resources will be high value to solve a lot of problem, congestion on distribution grid and transmission grid, to provide ancillary services and to also be able to help the country that need to achieve their peak, for example. And to achieve that, we need to break some silos. For example, within the company, we used to have very different silo. For example, the asset management is not the same word as system operation. And we are working through digital solution to make the two words more imbricated. And it is the same with the different players in the system. And it's why I'm very happy to attend this event, because we need such events to be able to exchange ideas, because if we are clear and are convinced about the fact that in the future digital solution will have a high value, at the moment we do not have the detailed and the precise route to be taken, and we need to exchange, in fact, to draft this route, considering not only the technical issues, but also sociological issues, economical issues, and regulatory aspects as well.
I think the two latter points you made are very important. We get back to that. And Tavi?
I just like to react that I think this is a really important to diversify different type of digitalizations, really, that for whom we are doing this digitalization, really put customer in the center. And for one, I think in all around Europe, transmission grids are quite smart already. I think we have gigabytes and gigabytes information what we not used yet. And this is definitely a challenge for all of us, be more analytical, use big data for better grid management. But at least what we in Elering, maybe this is through the fact that we are really guys who believe that the best way running our security of supply is through well-functioning power markets or energy markets in general. We at least have put our focus into those solutions which empower a customer, empower energy markets, and really make them more efficient. And I think now I turn to one of the main points when we are talking about the transmission distribution system operator cooperations, and this is neutrality, information neutrality. And at least for me, this is a crucial point that I think we all believe in the future, in grid, less energy, more data. And if we really like to see that there are well-functioning markets, a lot of competition, and all market participants treated equally, then I see that the distribution system operators' neutrality, if they are part of the transmission distribution system operators' common platform, this is absolutely key. Create equal, highly competitive energy market across border.
I think it's a common belief that efficient markets are good for us. When entering into this digitalization arena, also, what value are we actually out to reap? What good are we doing? What are we doing better now or in the future than we've done in the past? Like renewable energy integration. Laurent, I think you got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there are various use cases associated to digital, and there's always these trends of bringing platform first or thinking on the use case. And I think what is interesting in that Elering case is they try probably to bring the platform first and bring an ecosystem of partners around and let the market develop. And this is what really I call a digital platform play.
Do this startup way, really, agile way.
If we look more on a use case basis, what we see as a challenge in our grids in Europe is the fact that renewable are bringing congestion in various new areas of the system. Of course, as grid operator, we are constantly challenged by a regulator on releasing more capacity of flows into ever more congested grids. And I would say a lot of value is enabling new flexibility to balance the system properly, first at national level, but also at regional and pan-European level. And here, a lot of the investment which we have started to do at TSO together with our TSOs is building a shared platform for building what we call a common grid model, which is targeting that every TSO at every minute makes calculation on the capacity based on what everyone knows from the entire pan-European system. And I think that's a good example of a use case which could be looked at in the future.
Someone's going to react on this massive amount of data coming in, and as part of that, are we really challenging the border between regulated and non-regulated business? Olivier?
Yes, it's a real issue, in fact, and we have to consider that during the first stage, we should be able to be innovative and just not to try to fix respective role just before, but just to try to develop new innovation, new initiatives, and then to consider regarding the result of those initiatives, what is the values of society, if it has to be driven by a regulatory sector or by a competitive sector. But we need at the moment to advance in both directions, stimulating the competitive sector, but also allowing regulated company, in fact, to develop innovation.
1212
We
on
have a
kuulda.
great example with the question about the use of the storage in Europe, because we know that there are technologies
1212 on kuulda.
that could be very useful for
kuulda.
the power system, but we are looking what is the good model, in fact. We do not have that model at the moment. And well, we try to discuss about who is allowed to do something, who is not allowed, but we don't have any idea about how to develop it. The way we are working on that, and especially in France and with the regulator, is we have to try to make some experiments, but at the industrial stage, and then we will be the value of the services and to be able to draft, that is the target in terms of model, and to be very pragmatical, in fact, trying, if it's not relevant as a services driven by TSO or DSO, we can put it on the competitive sector. But we need to push new ideas, to put it on the field, and to evaluate it without any dogmatic approach, in fact.
Yeah. Laurent, just to follow a bit up on that, you're representing all TSOs and dialogue with regulators, lawmakers on European scene. How is this process? How should this process be to be efficient, to actually test out new opportunities? Because we don't oversee what we can actually do, how we can exploit this yet.
Yeah, so this is of course a complex environment, because on one side we have the countries with their own regulations. On the other side we have the Energy Commission with the pan-European regulation on particularly onto cross-border, and I think what we try to do at TSO is working, I would say, in constructive manners with our members, in aligning at best the national regulations, and enabling innovations, taking advantage of the best of our members. And I very much like here to being between RTE and Ellering, because I think the two are a very good example of strong digital innovators. And what we try to do at TSO is to kind of foster these new ideas and facilitating this sharing of best practice. Now, we should not be naive. Every country has its own regulation, has its own size of TSOs and DSOs, its own size of existing market participants. And for sure, the flavor of that digitization is, in my view, going to be slightly different from one country to the others, depending on this national environment.
Right. Tavid, you just presented a fairly broad picture in terms of integrating across both electricity and other sectors, creating actually a very inclusive hub for a lot of information for market development. Could you say a bit more? What kind of opportunities, what kind of role for the TSO is within this?
I think this is exactly a question about the TSO future business model, once again. Then, and I think we are challenging ourselves regularly, that we currently operate 100% regulated businesses, both electricity, gas, and we challenge ourselves that what we are going to do next, going we out from a fully regulated business to non-regulated businesses, and which type of company we are at all. That I think when we started as an independent system operator, unbundled from previous incumbent, we basically placed us as an electricity transmission system operator. Currently we are energy transmission system operator. Maybe in the future we are, I don't know, data transmission company. And this is important one, that we see that this energy transition very much also impact business model of transmission system operators. And even if we stay 100% regulated business as we are right now, then I see that first time through digitalization we see real competition for such transmission and distribution grid, especially in areas as Estonia, where very not very highly populated. Then basically I don't know, maybe this is a lean grid concept or whatever the name can be, but I see that our customers all the time compare that, okay, what is the more economically viable, to be off-grid or get the grid connection from distribution system operators. And I see that there are huge competitive pressure from off-grid solutions already to both to main grid and distribution grid operators to really invest only this minimum, very minimum level and not to
1212, minu nimi on Joonas, kas on mind kuulda?
Really somehow
Rääkisin,
damage
oli kuulda.
our own business because just consumers and producers start to leave from the grid. That anyway, I think already this digitalization has bring a huge change, that we are not so much natural monopoly anymore as we have been many years past.
This brings us into discussion about the difference between short-term optimization in the grid we actually got today and the long-term planning. Because one of the things we think digitalization will give us is more end-user flexibility and much better tools to balance and equal out and flatten the load curve locally. And that possibly has an impact on our investment plans. We have across Europe enormous amounts planned for investments in infrastructure. It may be too much. Or Olivier, what do you think?
In fact, the question is not too much. Is it the good one? Because we are now observing in some places in France that with the development of renewable, the use of the grid is changing very fast. And so, as it is very long, in fact, to develop new infrastructures, because it's more or less 7 to 8 years. And it's not obvious to decide now what will be exactly the situation in 10 years. And so it's why we have to consider new planning model, in fact, to evaluate the risks that the situation, because we observe an evolution in the energy consumption. Our forecast is that for the next 15 years in France, the electricity consumption will be more or less stable or will decrease. Even considering new use of electricity with development of electrical car, because there are also a lot of solutions with energy efficiency which allow to decrease the consumption. So you have the location of the renewable sources that are not at the moment always easy to know, and you have a fast evolution of the consumption. So to decide and to be able to plan the right grid that you will need in 10 years, it's quite difficult. It's the reason why we need those flexibility resources in order to be able to solve some constraint that we observe that perhaps will disappear after a few years. And it's also a big challenge to make the regulation evaluate, in fact, to consider this type of situation, because as a TSO business, you are well paid when you invest a lot in the infrastructures. Our main business is if we are allowed to spend a lot of money to build new substation, new transmission line, we are well paid. If we propose some smart solution, in fact, that avoid to develop infrastructure, but for better use, in fact, of those infrastructures, or innovative, or to support innovative market models and so on. So the remuneration of the TSO is not as well as to develop infrastructure. It's a big issue, in fact, a collective issue, to adapt all those schemes, in fact, to be able to be more flexible and to achieve the energy transition, keeping the cost under control.
Thanks to digital technology, we have the pleasure of having questions from the audience online, and I think this is fitting well in now. And it's how are we enabled on the DSO and TSO side to go forward? For me, the central question is what is being done by EU and national regulatory bodies and institutions in order to empower and support the players. Laurent.
There is a lot ongoing, I must say. First of all, there are new network codes which have been written as a result of the third directive, which are already a first evolution in the step which we are going to get into integrating TSO operations together. And a lot of the development which I was mentioning before, like the common grid model, is one element. There is a lot to come also on balancing markets, on capacity allocation and congestion management, and so on. So that's what I would qualify what happens between now and 2022, kind of. And again, at TSOE, I remind that this has been created together between TSOs, but also implying large amount of stakeholders. And we have, I would say, consultation of stakeholders pretty much every 3 months right now on various elements of these network codes. So I engage each of you, if you are interested by this topic, to come and voice your concern. What we also have as a second level is, of course, the context of the clean energy package, which is very interesting because I think it sets a benchmark going beyond what we have currently into our network code, and we fully recognize that. And I think that's a lot around exactly what Olivier was saying, created a new real-time market and connecting markets with digital, taking advantage of this new platform play, as what we heard, and enabling new data hub for putting, I would say, new startup into these environments. But I hope I'm not going to be too negative to the room here, but that is in a scale which is 2022, 2025. So we should not forget that the changing of regulation in Europe takes some time.
Be more challenging, be more challenging.
But my point here, what I want to say is that that does not mean that we need to wait for 2025. I think the framework for bringing this innovation in are today the network code are how they are. There are a lot of people participating into this discussion. So if you want to do more, if you want to challenge TSOs and DSOs, that is really the place where you should come moving forward. I also mentioned we have a TSO-DSO platform, which is very active. We are going to work this year, I think, mostly on 2 topics. One of them is data exchange format between TSO and DSO. And the second one is active network management across TSO and DSO. So I think the agenda is very active. We cannot deny that the back-end regulation, when it comes to energy, is not as agile and fast as digital, and that's an environment which we have to live with. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, but we have to live in this environment.
Tavi?
Also a couple of points regarding on that. First, what Laurent also mentioned, standardization. I think really standardization is one of key things that I think we don't need one central data hub for all EU countries or one data exchange platform for all countries, but I think we have to guarantee that different data hubs, different platforms able to communicate with each other. I think this is the first. The second thing is related with data ownership, that really data owned by customer, that not owned by the company who collect this data. And this brings me already third point, maybe it's related to neutrality issue. Once again, I think this is a central one. And maybe this is a really solution and then somehow the way of success in Estonia that Elering as a neutral party centrally developed electricity and gas data hubs without any market interests. I think this is a crucial one. If we now like to extend it, we should guarantee that all market participants, especially in case of more distributed generation and storage, when small micro generators compete with large generators, and then this incumbent question comes in really that currently still very many distribution system operators in Europe related with previous energy market incumbents who still trade and produce a lot of quantities of energy in EU energy market, and this is another crucial point. And I think this is why I said that we have to be a more adventurous, more bold regarding our aims, more challenging. Exactly that we currently still open clean energy package, and I think there are a lot of room put in rules in place which already gives a lot of positive benefits to energy market digitalization and how we really can empower customers in our EU energy market.
You said that you don't see the need for one, say, EU-wide central solution, and given the technology uncertainty, we don't know how much about the consumers will actually react, what new business models we get in place. Is a, say, decentralized solution between different countries the best way to move forward at this stage? Laurent?
Yeah, so that's basically what, as part of our new digital strategy at TSO, we are trying to have, on one step, an harmonized architecture view as much as we can, and basically guide along these principles. But then, of course, the concept and the notion of decentralization is very important. And again, the notion of how it works in Europe is the benchmark and best practice come from the countries and then gets basically aggregated back into forming up, I would say, a pan-European view as part of the implementation. So that's how we try to work at TSO. We spend a lot of time on interoperability, standardization, and joint architecture, common architecture across TSOs.
Yeah. Olivier, what's your thoughts on that?
Excuse me.
What are your thoughts on, say, rather having decentralized or at least national solution at this stage and see what is the testing ground of different solutions?
I think that we have to learn how to combine the different solutions, because one of the issue, and Tavi explained that we need to put the customer in the center of the process, and so there is a clear expectation from a part of the population to have some local solution and decentralized solution. But if we want to keep, in fact, the cost under control and to keep a high quality of service, we should be able also to organize this subsidiarity between the different size of the country and the connection with Europe. But it is one of the main challenges for the TSO. Not to say that there is a better model than another, but to be very pragmatical and to observe how there is a clear space to develop a part of local solution with auto-consumption, with some local grid, and how to organize and to connect this with wider grid at the national level and at the European level. Otherwise, we will lose a lot of advantages that we do have in Europe with the high quality of services in the electricity sector and also low prices.
Right. We were looking at a lot of data, and Tavi, you mentioned the concerns about data privacy. The data owned by the customer, grid agreements will regulate what they can be used for by the grid companies, but new business models would require some kind of end-user participation and approval. So there's a policy element in this, there's a business element, there's a regulatory element. Laurent?
Yeah, so what we see clearly, and I think the Ellering Hub is a good example, is that raised the question of how can a grid operator use, I would say, data from consumer and prosumers to his own interest and share that data for potentially other partners to do that. And I think that raised question around data privacy and around selecting the right opt-in model for consumer and protecting data from consumer. To be honest, being a consumer myself and having home energy management in my home, I like the idea of being able to transfer my data sets from one supplier to another one in a flexible manner. And there must be a third party in a way which guarantee that you can have the history of your information through the time. And I think in that model of what we see with Ellering TSOs, having this neutral and central role can play in that example an interesting role. And myself, my home energy management went bankrupt 6 months ago. The day, it's not a joke, it happened to me. The day it went bankrupt, he said to me, sorry, I have to withdraw my sensors and I'm going to trash your data. And that's the end of all the history of the 3 years which happened in your home. And I think that needs to change. Someone needs to take ownership of this data and manage this for the prosumers.
Yeah. Tavi?
I think this is exactly a case that I don't see the reason why customer couldn't change their supplier basically from next day. There are basically no technical obstacles, and I think this is a way where we are heading, and it should be like that. And at least in our case, how we really achieve this high supplier switch rate, that really, of course, there not so fast switch currently available, but anyway, customer can switch from next month their suppliers, and I think this is already an enormous challenge. And if I'm log in to SVIT portal, then basically I can make available all my energy consumption data for all market participants who I'd like to share this, and from whom I like to get beats to buy electricity or gas. Same way that I think this is such a basic layout for further data management that really consumers are data owners, and they like to share and they can to share whoever they like their data, but of course this security is vital, and track records must be also there, that if I give opportunity to others check my data, then I have opportunity also control who have give a look and for what purposes. and this is important one. This is transparency for customer. This is important one.
Right. There's a lot of processes going on. There are initiatives from TSOs. There's working done by the authorities at EU level and at national level. And things are moving forward. But there's always things that could have been done differently or better. What kind of processes do we need to get a good as possible process around the way forward to a digital transformation? Olivier, do you start?
I think that what we do need is, as all those solutions are in fact collaborative solutions. It's not possible for only one player to imagine a scheme that works, and so we have to develop whole initiative that helps to implement collaborative spaces, collaborative project, and to be also, I already said, but to be very pragmatical. And there, to highlight also our key principles. We were discussing about the data, individuals' data. So regarding this, I think that there are very clear rules that we can observe. The first is how the people are the owner of the data. They can decide if they do agree or not to share the data. And in fact, in that case, it is the value that will gain, the new services, that will make the difference. And also, there are a lot of solutions to aggregate the data and to make them anonymous, and then to use it in another way for market participant and the real-time operation of the grid and so on. And what we do need in that case is first to inform the people, to make pedagogy, because it is a complex system, and sometimes it appears to the people that is very difficult to understand, and we have this experience, and especially with politicians, we have to, and it is one of the rules of the association, in fact, to take time to explain, to make the things more clear, and to highlight what are the real challenges. And what I do observe at the moment, and especially through some specific group that, and you spoke about the DSO, TSO. Before this group, in fact, there were two different type of players, each one thinking the fact that the other one could be, how to say, an adversary, and to work together, help in fact to share the problem and to try to highlight common solution. And I do believe in such a method, in fact, to make the thing more possible.
Laurent, you're working very close to the authorities. What would you suggest we could do even better?
So what I would love is find a way to think out of the box, as what the Americans said, on the regulation and what we can make out of data and platform of data. And I sometimes have the impression that I sit on a boat which go in a certain direction, which is this historical direction, and where somewhere we don't come together enough into rethinking, I would say, out of a white page, what we could do. And for sure, we cannot do out of a white page, but I think that would be interesting to compare this white page with the direction where our boat is going to. And of course, we would like to go faster, and I express that it takes time and so on. That's maybe a good way of trying to change a bit, and maybe doing innovation on regulation. And we do a lot of innovation on technology, data, and so on. Why not trying innovation on regulation? That's maybe something which is going to help.
Right. Tavi?
Yes, very short that I see the need for further market liberalization. If we are really liberalized market, then I think there are need for data. And if we put the consumers in central place of our ecosystem, and there are fully liberalized market, then this data really create the value, and we basically manage this energy transmission process like that, that really we create something which gives a value for customers through this digitalization. But I see the precondition is really a market. If there are no market, there are no value for data.
Right, the sound came on, the time is up. I think I'll, if I'm going to keep the time limit, we'll say thank you for a very good discussion, interesting issues and topics you're raising. For myself, I think the main takeaway here is that if we are to realize all the benefits we can see around digitalization, we depend heavily on third parties actually doing their part. And that really depends on TSO being a much more active participant in market facilitation. Not being the market player, but actually creating the possibilities of making it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.